Good afternoon, this is Dominic with TheBackVlog. Last week, my wife and I watched the film Obsession. Unfortunately, with Obsession, I wasn't as big a fan of this film as I thought I was going to be, which I know is contrary to pretty much everybody else's glowing reception to this. Not to say that I thought it was bad or anything, I just thought it was going to be a different movie than it was. And whenever the film started and I saw Blumhouse was the production company, I realized I may have made a mistake, even though I'm pretty sure the Zach Cregger films are Blumhouse. So I don't know. They got some wins every now and then, but I had never really associated them with the best horror films. Fun and campy, but not like thought-provoking. Before I get into the things I didn't like about it, I do want to say a few things I actually really do like about it. I think there are definitely like occasional moments of brilliance in this, like where the direction shines. Some of the things that come out to me are there's a scene whenever the main character and his friend are talking in the break room of their workplace, and the girl who has the eponymous obsession is like in the background, and she's like completely out of focus, but the only thing that you can really see is like the complexion of her face, and they're talking for a very long time, but she's like unmoving and unflinching, and it's genuinely like really unnerving, just because like it is a background detail. You can feel the tension, the burning tension from her. It's incredible. I need to figure out the actress's name because I am going to be talking about her. Another thing that I really like about this, which I unfortunately wish was explored more, and it really wasn't, but there's this implication that Nikki, the girl in the film, is still conscious in whatever it was that kind of like took possession of her. There are like these things throughout where like she's like screaming and genuinely terrified, and it's like an on and off switch, which I will get to, but I think narratively speaking, I think that's really interesting. You have like these other scenes, which I'm not really gonna delve too much into so as not to spoil it. But there's like these other scenes that reveal that the true Nikki is inside this vessel. That implication is so unnerving and honestly like horrifying after you really think about the ramifications of everything and you see the events that unfold. It's traumatizing. And one last thing that I really like about this is the practical effects in this were really, really, really good, which I don't really doubt. If Blumhouse is good at one thing, it's like the splatter effects of their campy horror films. I don't really know much about like practical effects makeup and all that, but I can definitely tell you that it was incredibly effective. And was not fake in a way that made me extend my disbelief towards the film. One thing that I found interesting, albeit repetitive, was the lighting in it as well. I like how Nikki's face is silhouetted a lot of the film, in like the darker scenes anyway. And in those silhouetted scenes, like you can see like the glare in her eyes, and it looks like a hunter in the woods prowling its prey, and it is really moody. It's really atmospheric. I think it's really well done. I've read a lot of people complaining about the fact that they think this film is underlit. I don't know if I necessarily agree. I think it was adequately lit. I think nothing was missed that was intended to be missed. I don't know. I think that's just a weird grasping at straws kind of criticism to the film. That being said, I think because I went into this with a different mindset, I I came out of it not really enjoying it as much as I would have liked to. And after like kind of simmering with it a little bit, I like it a tiny bit more, but not really as much as everybody else seems to. I went into expecting a complex psychological horror. That's the kind of stuff that I like. And what I got was like just kind of like a schlocky, like 80s kind of horror movie, which I have no problems with. I think those are fun. And I think this is as fun as it can be, considering everything that happens in it. But I put this along the lines of like a B tier 80s slasher rather than like a Shining or a Lighthouse or anything like that. Not to say that like it's really fair for Obsession to be put up against those kinds of films, but that's just like kind of what I was anticipating and I did not get. One of the reasons I think this is because I think I just have no sympathy or respect or tolerance for stupid characters in horror films. And the main character, obviously he was intended to be incredibly stupid and narcissistic, which I'll get to the subtext of it as well. But just like, there are so many times where I just wanted to hit him, and I know that's the point, but like that's not what I dig in horror. I think, and it's just a taste thing. I guess like I feel like a lot of the horror that I like are whenever there are people in fucked up and oppressive situations that are beyond their control, and they're doing their best to survive it and navigate it. Whereas in this, the situation is completely the fault of the protagonist, which I know that's the point that the film is trying to make. But not only do you have the premise of it being the fault of the protagonist, but every single thing that he does is perpetuating the problem. And I'm like, dude, just shut the fuck up. I don't know. I was just pissed. I was angry. Her name is Indy Navaretti, and I think Indy Navaretti's performance is really good. I don't think it's great, but I don't think that's her fault as well, because she hits the highs and the lows. Like, her range is really, really, really good. Her range is incredible, but I think this is more along the lines of the direction of the film, but I wish there was more subtlety in their performance rather than just like an on and off switch. I do think that it is incredible that she can just like go from 0 to 100 back to 0 instantaneously. I think that's really, really impressive. But another thing that I would have wished that this film gave me was a little bit more of the subtle, sly nature, the kind of stuff that like creeps under your skin. But what I got was basically like Silent Hill 2 Maria, if it was Jared Leto's Joker playing that part. And yeah. And then you just have like the other heaps of horror tropes. It's very predictable and cliche. I saw another negative review that I think put it exactly the way that I thought and just wouldn't have been able to put myself. But they described a lot of the scare scenes as being telegraphed from a mile away, as if it were like a fighting game. And I think that's really well put. You have the scene with the car, that's the biggest one. You have like the dialogue that's going on, and there are certain lines of dialogue that make me know exactly how the scene is going to end. And the framing of the shot it's literally setting up for the end of this scene. And whenever the jump scare happens, I didn't jump scare because I saw it happening the second the scene started. Then there's the other scene in the diner, which actually there's a positive and a negative with this scene. Uh, I think the positive of this scene, it did give me a little bit of that subtlety in a performance that I was looking for. Whenever I got initially interested in this film, this scene at the diner, not the diner, the restaurant, the fine dining restaurant, this scene was the one that I was like, oh, I need to see this, because there was more range. You do have the Indian Navaretti 0 to 100, but you have the slow ramp up to it as well, rather than just like the switch. And I think I think that scene was incredibly well directed, and I just wish there was more of that. But at the end of the scene, you have the protagonist, Baron, talking on the phone with somebody before like a big reveal is made, and they do the exact same thing that they do in the break room, which was cool the first time, but it was kind of laughable the second time, because I was like, oh, you're doing it again? Okay, that's fine. There were, I think this has like the problem that the house that Jack built, the Lars von Trier film. I think this film has the same problem that that film has, for me anyway, where I was laughing when the film didn't want me to. And there are like good comedy bits in here, like towards the end of the film, that like were intended to be comedy, but then there are other things where you just like have these like immersion breaking things, like whenever Nikki is doing like her monologues in parties, and the music is louder than everything, and all of the people around her, or the background actors shouldn't be able to hear her, but then they all like turn towards her as she's giving her monologue, even though this loud music is blaring. And then you have the same scene in the restaurant where she does her thing in the restaurant, and you know, you have all the background characters or actors looking at her, and then they just kind of go back to doing their own thing as if nothing happened. I'm like, that is like, it's just like these little things that are breaking my immersion in a comedic way. I can acknowledge and I can see why that there is a lot of praise for this. The cast and the crew are incredibly young. These are like up and comers, and there is some deep subtext in it that I kind of question how much was actually intentional. There are two things that I've heard about the film: how it's kind of like an exploration of narcissism, and it's an exploration of borderline personality disorder. And the narcissism, I think I can definitely see, because you have the Baron character who is, representative of that. And all of the decisions that he's making are in his own favor. The whole thing that happens because it's something that he straight up asked for. And, he's constantly afraid of failure and afraid of the way that people view him. And you can't misconstrue it as like a politeness, more so an imagistic thing. And I do think that there is a little bit of that going on here. As for like the bipolar, or not the bipolar, the borderline personality disorder thing, represented by Nikki, I think that is, I don't think that was intentional at all. I think that's a thing that a lot of people are kind of like putting on to this, which I think that's an incredible interpretation. I think it's incredible that people can have that interpretation. It's just not something that I really subscribe to personally. I didn't think about that at all during the film. I didn't think about that at all after hearing this discourse afterwards. I just don't really agree personally. One more thing before I kind of call it with this video. I think this kind of applies to weapons as well, but this applies to like a lot of modern horror. A lot of like the indies, or indie 2020s horror films that I've seen. I really like the fact that we're kind of like heading towards this kind of like film out of time kind of thing, where the setting is fantastical in a way, in a just like a normal suburban kind of way, in a Blue Velvet kind of way, where you have, in Blue Velvet you have the you have like the 50s and 80s kind of hybrid setting where it's like you have like 1980s suburbia and you have like all of this fashion, but you also have like, you know, everybody's driving cars from the 50s and all the music that's playing is like this freaking doo-wop shit. And it's like it's a really weird thing. Uh a really weird like setting because it's like it shows you like familiarity of um of suburbia and like a general community and everything, but it's showing you that familiarity from like two different like time periods and kind of combine like mashing it into one. um I think that's really interesting. Like in Obsession, you have these characters that are using like smartphones and social media, and they're definitely like super modern characters, but like all of the televisions in this are like 80s like tube televisions with like the wooden frames, and all of the vehicles in this are like 1980s station wagons. And it's really interesting. I think it's really weird. Maybe it's like the Stranger Thingsification of culture nowadays, where you know, you have like the 1980s rose tinted glasses of culture, um, kind of meshing it with, you know, modern day culture and technology and everything. I don't know. I don't really know what I'm trying to say here. All of the pieces for that thought are now out there for you to piece together, because I don't know how to articulate what I'm trying to say. I just think that the setting of this is really interesting, and I think that is a thing that the direction of modern horror seems to be going in, because I feel like Weapons kind of did the same kind of like hybrid retro and modern uh, aesthetic. Um, but yeah, that's it for me for Obsession. I thought it was fine, but I think even if your subtext is trying to say something very important, I think it's a little bit lost on me if your tone is kind of campy. Uh, and there's nothing wrong with trying to say something when you're being campy. You know, you have things like Sleepaway Camp or Society, uh, which are films that are tackling like are tackling larger societal issues, but it is trapped in the campiness of a low budget horror film. Um, so I can appreciate it. It just wasn't for me. I think this is good. This is like a good Halloween party movie. I don't think this is a good sit down and really ponder kind of film. But I don't know. That's just me, I guess. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and take care.